He left to help himself. He went back to help others. And along the way, he nearly lost everything. Brian Head Welch is the co-founder and lead guitarist of the Grammy Award-winning multi-platinum metal band Korn. And he's here to share the incredible story of leaving the hardcore music scene only to have God lead him back to his tribe and to his band. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
I think you were here about 4 or 5 years ago or so, and it was great having you then. But it's been a long trip, a long journey since that time.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of folks that haven't heard your story yet, Brian, you say there was kind of like a significant moment where things started to come into focus and your life changed when Jesus introduced himself. So tell us a little bit about that come to Jesus moment and what brought you to that place.
Yeah, well, you know, when I was 10 years old, I started playing electric guitar. My parents got me a guitar, and I got into all these bands, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, all these heavy metal bands, and I thought that was the life, and I wanted to be a rock star. Well, a lot of kids want to be rock stars, and for some reason, I made it when I was in my early 20s, and I became a rock star, but it just, I ended up being empty and just, you know, just the drug addiction, the whole same story, you know, and so Jesus came into my life in 2005, and I just instantly fell in love with just his presence and just that. It was like everything I was searching for, and I ended up leaving the band because I had a 6-year-old daughter at the time, and her mom was out of her life, and I was the only one there for her, so I decided to leave and raise her.
So you did it for the sake of getting your daughter out of that environment.
That was one of the main reasons, and then the other reason was like, you know, I want to get to know God, you know, and I want to stop touring. I want to be in one place, home.
So what was the response to that? I mean, I think it shook the heavy metal band world. It took it by surprise that you came to faith in Christ. What was that transaction? I mean, the transition like for you? It
was kind of crazy because I was looked at as a crazy. Oh, the guy thinks he saw Jesus, and now he's, you know, and all that. So, but you know what's cool nowadays? There's so many more metal musicians that have found Jesus, like Alice Cooper, the Iron Maiden drummer. I used to love Iron Maiden back in the day, and yeah, just a lot of people, guitarists for Ozzy, you know. Just I'm not the only weirdo now, Jesus freak.
You're not the only Jesus freak in heavy metal, right? After leaving Korn, were there trials that you kind of faced and some tribulations, not just criticisms, but just having to adjust to a lifestyle outside of, you know, your people group and your band and kind of that you know, touring kind of lifestyle?
Yep. Oh man, the trials. I mean, at first I felt like I had wings and I was flying, and God was like, it was me and God walking every day through life, and it was just magical feeling. And the next thing you know, I start praying these prayers. I'm growing in the Lord, and I start praying things. I hear people pray like, hey, pray that your faith grows. And so I start praying my faith grows, and then when you pray your faith grows, you're going to get put in situations where all you have is faith.
Right.
So like within a few years, I lost all my money. I lost 2 cars. I lost my house, foreclosure.
Wow.
Really?
Bad business deals. Bad, people would say in the world would call it bad luck. Just one thing after another is going wrong. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Where are you? You know? And so he strengthened me and matured me through a lot of that, you know, just the fire of the trials.
The trial of your faith works patience. And that's what was happening, huh? Now, were you involved in music at all after you left Korn? Did you have some solo things going on there, or try to get into Christian music, you know, how do you say it, business and industry?
Yeah, I did. At first, the first thing I did is wrote a book, and that was my first book, Save Me From Myself, and that did really well. That was like out of the gate 2 years after I got saved, and it was really well. But after I started doing music, it was not as, I started a record label in the hopes of that I could get people like me, like-minded with faith, you know, that I could put out music. And I started a label, and within a year, the label like crashed and burned, or maybe a year and a half, and put out music, and it sold a little bit, did okay, and went and played shows, and it just seems like some of the Christians didn't know what to do with me, and it was weird. I was caught in the middle because the world thought I was crazy, and then the Christians were kind of scared of me because I'm just you know,
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
different. But I found my niche in the hardcore Christian world and stuff like that, and that was fun. So,
But that door wasn't necessarily blown wide open for you, and you know, you sense that maybe God's blessing wasn't there in that arena at that time.
I felt like He wanted me to go to His bride because the church is His bride. He loves the church, and I felt like, you know, I was supposed to go. I went and I put out my book and I told my testimony in many churches all over the country, and so I felt like I was being faithful with that at first, and it gave people a lot of hope that, you know, the world's not it's just going to hell. You know, God is at work.
Yeah.
And so He used me a little bit, you know, along with many others, and so that was my calling then.
Yeah.
And then He just transitions me. You know, you just can't predict what God's going to do. He's wild.
Brian, in your new project, With My Eyes Wide Open, you get really vulnerable. You just tell your story. And I think sometimes many Christians feel like we have to clean it all up and make it pristine. I mean, what's been the response to, you know, being so open to people about your journey, the mistakes and the miracles you've experienced?
They're really appreciative because, you know what, this generation, everything's reality. Everything, the TV shows, the internet and everything, and it's just like everyone can smell a phony like miles away, and you got to be real. And so I got grace in my life for it, because some people tell me like it's just natural for me. Some people are like, I could never talk about what, and so I'm just I got grace for it, and that's all I could say. And I think we as Christians need to grow and ask for grace for that, because we don't have it all together all the time, and life is hard. It's a struggle, and you know, I think when we share our struggles and overcoming them, it prophesies into other people's lives that it's going to be okay, and they feel like they can relate, you know.
Okay, so it's one thing for you to go through so many trials and tribulations, but then you turn around and you've watched your daughter, you know, go through some of the same things you experienced. What kind of grace is on your life to deal with that?
Well, that's a whole nother ball game, because I wrote my book on my Apple computer, and I could have put just made it crash my computer from the tears that were falling on it, because it's like, there's one thing to write about how I screwed my life up, but there's another thing to write about, you know, watching your daughter's life fall apart in front of your eyes. So that's what I went through, and it was harder to write than my first book because of that fact. And you know, she went through a lot of what these teenagers go through. And you know, I've been on a few TV shows lately because the book came out, even Christian shows, where people are telling me their kids are going through the same thing: depression, self-hate, cutting, suicidal thoughts and threats. I mean, it's an epidemic. And so, you know, my daughter went through it. I found her help, and we got through it. And then she's so brave. She was like, "You can share my story." You know, so in the real detail, she let me share, because, you know, I think she has that same grace where she wants to be real, so that she can do something for this generation. You know?
For parents watching today that might be in that same position, I mean, they're in your Converse right now, your shoes, where they've got a daughter or son going through some deep stuff. You said you found some help. What was the best help you found, or how did you really kind of see some breakthroughs in that area?
Well, I found a boarding school for her, and I was exploring all options, but that it just landed in my lap. It was a God thing, and you know, it was perfect, because the girl that runs it is named Tiffany Claywell, and Travis Claywell, her husband. Anyway, Tiffany, she used to follow around the rock bands like when she was younger. So she totally, and then she got saved. Like, she had piercings, all this stuff, and then she got saved. Totally changed her life. You wouldn't even recognize her. But she understands my life. She understands my daughter's life and being around that stuff young. And so God just totally restored her life. She didn't want nothing to do with God. My daughter didn't. And then now she's just like, God went after her himself, and she opened up her heart herself.
It's Janaea, right?
Janaea, yeah.
And she's doing well today.
She's doing great today. And I would just tell other parents, like, tough love. If you're going through this, tough love. Anything that you can do, don't enable them, and don't, you know, just because you love them doesn't mean that you just do everything that they want. You love them by, we only got one chance. When they're 18, they're legal adults. So just tough love with your kids.
Brian, it is so typical when a person gets saved, say, come out of the industry that you were in or that you're still in, that the church rushes to change that person. You have to clean it up. You have to get rid of the tattoos. I mean, you're living proof that God can use a person right where they are, looking the way they look, just going out, sharing the gospel. Kind of hit on that for a little bit, because I think sometimes we feel like we have to change people and clean it all up.
Yeah, it's well, if you notice things about God, there's one thing that I've learned, and He's really not in a hurry, like most of the time. He's not in a hurry, and so we have to remember that. And so what we do is we get Christ inside of people. When Christ comes in, He starts to work, and slowly but surely changes. There's some dramatic changes. I've seen people, and that just makes me crazy that they're just they just totally change and miraculous, and that's rare. My thing was, it took years. It was like the onion, it's like the layers off the onion, and so it was just, I think we need to be patient, and we can't change people. We can help them along the journey, but Jesus hung out with sinners, and he was patient with he got frustrated with his disciples, but he was patient with them, and so we just got to remember that, God's working slowly but surely.
Yeah, and allowing the Holy Spirit to do what only He can do,
Yeah.
and we just do what He asks us to do. Hey, we're going to have you back on tomorrow's show, a lot more with Brian Head Welch on Friday's Harvest, what led him to go back and rejoin the band Korn and the tribe, and get back into touring, and the fact that you guys got you brought a crew member on, or you got a crew member who's part of the team that's there at the concerts and events, and he's out there kind of asking God, show me who to target, and evangelizing and sharing the gospel with people at concerts. So we're going to get into all that tomorrow, but if you'd like to connect with Brian Head Welch, pick up a copy of With My Eyes Wide Open. A lot of critical acclaim for this book. So transparent, so honest, so authentic, and opening up on how God can transform a life. You can go to brianheadwelch.net or go to our website, harvest-tv.com. You'll find an easy way to link back to his site as well. Again, he's going to be back with us tomorrow. But when we return, Pastor Mark Lance has today's Connections.